Farmers, trust is everything. At Genesis Fertilizers, we're not just proposing to build a facility, we're building a future designed for you. With real progress already underway, we're closer to providing Western Canadian farmers with a reliable, locally produced fertilizer supply. Now is the time to take control of your farm's future. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility.
New survey has been done by Farmers for Climate Solutions, looking at some of the risk factors and concerns that farmers have around climate change. Joining us here to talk about the results is Brent Preston. He is president of Farmers for Climate Solutions. He's based out of Ontario. Hey, Brent, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Okay, so Leger, the research firm, did this for you. How many farmers were surveyed across Canada?
It was 800 and something. I don't have the number right in front of me, but almost 900 farmers that we contacted through a phone survey in sort of late August, early September.
Okay, cool. And what was the purpose? Before we get into the results, I just want to kind of set the stage here. What was the purpose of this work?
So the broad purpose was just to help us do a better job of charting a sustainable, resilient future for Canadian agriculture. Maybe that sounds a bit grandiose, but Farmers for Climate Solutions is a coalition of farm groups. So we have 29 member organizations right now, from coast to coast, and we're basically farm organizations that are concerned about climate change and that think that farming and agriculture can play a positive role as we confront climate change in the coming years. So we did this poll because we wanted to better understand what producers across the country think about the issue of climate change, what they think about environment and sustainability, what they see as the greatest challenges. And we're hoping that will allow us to offer better programming to farmers. We offer a coast-to-coast farmer training program that you know about. And we also do a lot of advocacy work. So we work with governments, provincial, federal, to try to encourage them to adopt policies that are going to support farmers as they confront the challenges of climate change.
So what were some of the main findings that you found? What did farmers say?
Well, a lot of interesting things. I guess the sort of headline is that that climate change is right up at the top of the lists of concerns of Canadian producers over the next 10 years. We started the survey by asking an open-ended question. What do you see as the biggest challenge for agriculture in the next 10 years? And more farmers mentioned climate change than anything else. There were a couple of other things like input costs, increasing government regulations, severe weather events, which is related to climate change, that were right up there at the top as well. So for me, the most interesting thing out of the survey was sort of getting a little window into what farmers see as the biggest challenges going forward, and then they had lots of ideas about how they think those challenges should be addressed.
Yeah, 76% of farmers and ranchers report being impacted by severe weather in the past 5 years. Farmers and ranchers fear future climate change impacts. Farmers and ranchers view themselves as good environmental stewards, and they're looking for, there's a line here, there's strong interest in high resilience, low emission practices. But at the same time, having said all that, for sure, the key is profitability drives the adoption of new practices, not just the ideological, I need to do.
Sure. Yeah, we asked a whole series of questions of farmers of what kind of practices they're already using or they're interested in. Things like cover cropping, improved nitrogen management, rotational grazing, practices that we know have a positive environmental impact. And it was surprising the number of farmers who said they're already doing it. And then there were a very strong majority of farmers who said they were interested in taking on these practices if they haven't already. But as you say, when we asked about motivations, why do you try these kind of things? Why do you try new practices on your farm? Far and away, the motivation is being more efficient, being more profitable, and from a producer perspective, it's easy to see. It's not surprising at all to hear people saying that.
So on some of the practices, then is lack of profitability a barrier for some then, or what's the barrier?
I think there's a number of different barriers. I think sometimes the financial risk of taking on those practices, but producers also mentioned that they don't always have good sources of information for learning about how to implement these practices, or good supports as they take them on. So another really interesting finding is that when we asked farmers what their most important sources of information are, again, far and away the number one answer was other farmers. So we found that the producers are really learning from each other, and their most trusted source of information is someone else in their community who's already trying something or already doing it on their farm. So I think that points to a real need to strengthen and support those networks, those farmer networks, those knowledge sharing networks, and to help farmers spread best practice within their own community.
Is there a lack of extension then? If farmers are having to rely on each other, that sounds good. That's grassroots based, but do we have a lack of extension in some of this?
Well, I think we knew from before the survey that we have a lack of extension services. That's something that comes up all the time. Whether you're talking to farmers at a field day, or if you're talking to agricultural policy nerds in Ottawa, everyone agrees that this is a big issue. When that question we asked about sources of information, universities, researchers, and governments were way down the list. It was other farmers and agricultural professionals, whether they're agrologists or CCAs who work for input suppliers, or for farm organizations. Those are the places that farmers are turning for information. And so I think there's a real need to strengthen those sources and to ensure that farmers have access to good, independent, professional advice from agrologists and CCAs on how to implement some of these beneficial management practices.
Now, there's some policy implications that are listed here. Invest in soil health and on-farm resilience. Emphasize farmer and rancher-led solutions. You mentioned that one. Develop supportive policies. Covered that. Lead with economic benefits. Provide multifaceted support. And one that is terribly often forgotten in the implementation: acknowledge regional differences.
Yeah.
This is a gap for sure, Brent.
For sure. And the survey results showed that there are important regional differences in producers' attitudes toward climate change and their perceptions of what the greatest risks are. So, in very broad strokes, in Eastern Canada, sort of Ontario East, climate change was much higher up the list than in Western Canada. But so I think when you mention the talking about soil health and resilience and leading with the economic benefits, I think part of this is the way we communicate and the way we talk to producers about environmental sustainability in the context of profitability and economic viability. Like the results clearly show that there aren't a lot of farmers who are motivated by the idea of reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. Doesn't mean they don't care about it. It's just not a big factor in terms of pushing them to make decisions on their farm, which is totally understandable. It's extremely hard. I don't know what my greenhouse gas emissions are on my farm, and I'm deeply involved in this work. It's really, really hard to figure out, and so it's hard to target that as something that you want to change. However, almost universally, farmers are really interested in stewardship, in maintaining their land, maintaining the productivity of their land for future generations. They're very interested in improving their soil health because they know that there are solid economic benefits to doing that. And they've been impacted by severe weather events, so they want to be more resilient. So I think if we talk about these new practices, whether it's growing a cover crop or using a enhanced efficiency fertilizer product, if we talk about them in terms of the economic returns they're going to bring and the benefits for soil health and resilience, I think we're going to get farther than if we just keep talking about emissions all the time.
Did you? I think you said this. You got some sort of idea in terms of the amount of these practices already in use and being used. Give us a sense of some of this.
Well, there were just about everything we talked about in terms of specific practices. I'm just scrolling to the section of the report where we talk about that.
That's good.
So like when we talk about improved nitrogen management, we had all over 2/3 of Canadian farmers saying they're already doing that. We had over 70% of farmers already using no-till or reduced till. Almost half of farmers reporting that they're already growing some cover crops. And when we dive into those results and we sort of look at the nuance and the data that we collected from all these farmers, we see that a lot of times folks are reporting that they're maybe growing a cover crop on, a portion of their farm, or they're doing it sort of 1 year out of every 3 they manage to get a cover crop in, and they're interested in doing more of it. So I think these results for me personally were super encouraging, because what it tells me is that farmers are experimenting with these kind of things. They're trying them out. They're interested in doing more of it. And there's a real opportunity to spread those practices if we have the right supports and the right policies in place to allow that to happen.
Is any sense of encouragement from a financial standpoint? Is there, how do we incentivize adoption for some of the gaps where we're maybe, or how do we, is there rewards going back that need to be implemented for people that have already done this at their own cost and own risk? What's your thoughts on that? Or what did you hear in the survey?
Well, we didn't get into quite that much detail in terms of how we incentivize these practices. When we talked about, we did ask producers, what will it take to get you to do more of this kind of thing? And again, it goes back to that policy implication that you mentioned earlier, that it's really multifaceted, that it's not one size fits all. That farmers talked about a lot of different things. They're some interested in financial incentives, but there was more interest in technical support. So almost 90% of farmers said that that it was really important that good technical support through agricultural professionals, farmer to farmer training, all that sort of stuff was available. They also mentioned risk management tools, so business risk management tools that are going to de-risk the adoption of some of these practices. And then some folks also talked about price premiums. So let's see a price premium for producers if they're producing a product using a certain practice or in a more sustainable manner. But again, technical support came out on top, and that was something that was pretty consistent across the country.
Well, hey, Brent, appreciate you joining us here today on Real Ag Radio to shed some light on this new national poll on producer perceptions of environmental sustainability and climate change. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks a lot, Shaun. Really appreciate it.